here I am on a video. Hi, welcome, hello. Today is a video. And it is a video that I am shamelessly ripping off of Angela from Literature Science Alliance, because today I'm going to be doing a Why You Should Read series video. And that series is the Dogs of War series by Adrian Tchaikovsky. For this video, I'm not going to be going into any spoilers. I am just going to convey my general thoughts about each one of these books and about the series as a whole, and hopefully maybe try and convince you to read this series as well. I read this entire trilogy last year in 2025. It was on my radar because I'm an Adrian Tchaikovsky fan, but it was not really planned until it was announced that Bee Speaker was coming out, and I decided what better time for me to read this series. So I read the first book, Dogs of War, in 1 month. Next month I read Bearhead, and then I read Bee Speaker when it came out. Don't ask me the months because I don't know what time is anymore. This is one of the most complex, visceral science fiction series that I've ever read. Adrian Tchaikovsky, I already trusted his writing up to this point because I've obviously had experience with his works before and I've enjoyed his works. Loved them, even. So I knew I was going to enjoy the Dogs of War series. I didn't realize how impacted I would be by this series. Adrian Tchaikovsky explores what he tends to explore in his other books, which is revolution and rebellion and the power structures and how they impact individuals and society. He does that again here in this series, but he always makes it fresh, always makes it new, always makes it compelling. These books evoked such a visceral reaction in me, visceral, emotional, just everything from the core of my being. I just connected and was compelled by this series. The first book, Dogs of War, follows Rex and some other perspectives, but mostly Rex, who is the titular dog of war. Rex is a good boy, and that's really all I knew about this series. This series starts off in this book in a world that is very much our own. It is Earth, and it is very much an Earth that we can recognize apart from the bioform creatures in this world. So the bioforms are animal and machine sentient creatures. These bioforms were created as weapons to fight on behalf of nations, on behalf of companies, on behalf of societies that found them disposable. Adrian Tchaikovsky, in the series, he really explores autonomy, agency, and identity. In this particular book, in Dogs of War, Adrian Tchaikovsky explores sentience, awareness, consciousness through Rex's character, and the ability of the individual to not follow the collective, to think for themselves, to challenge authority, and to question the validity and the morality of the powers that be that are in control. In the second book, in Bearhead, it carries on the wider world story of the bioforms, but picks up however many years later, and actually on a completely different planet. We've moved from Earth to Mars, and we are following, again, multiple perspectives. This particular book in Bearhead is the most, for me, difficult book to read, but it was also at the same time the most satisfying book to read because of Adrian Tchaikovsky's intentionality. There's a character in here named Thompson who is overtly, unsubtly, and directly inspired by Trump. This character, while we do not get a perspective from Thompson, we do see Thompson through the eyes of a character named Springer. And Springer is a human woman who, as the world has developed, humanity has moved on from bioforms and developed collars, which they give to beings to, as you would expect with the idea of a collar, to control them. And Springer is one of those people, one of those women who is collared. And subsequently, with her interactions with Thompson and the people that are essentially yes men around Thompson, it is incredibly, incredibly, incredibly uncomfortable to be in her perspective because of the way that she is treated mentally, emotionally, and physically. Collared individuals do not have any say whatsoever. They have to do what they are told, regardless of their desires. They are actually, because of the collar, compelled to want what is told of them because of their desire to satisfy the person who collared them. There's also another perspective named Jimmy. Jimmy is a more gritty character in this novel, one who is addicted to a medicine, a drug in this that's been developed. His character is one of those that is building a new world on Mars because Earth is not good enough for humanity anymore. And subsequently, the powerful, the rich, are trying to develop Mars. There is a particular scene in here where Jimmy loses what little control he has over himself. Jimmy loses autonomy, agency. That is, for me, so, dare I say, triggering. By the end of this novel, how Adrian Tchaikovsky is able to turn all of that anxiety and that visceral reaction of these awful things that are happening to these characters and in this world, and turn it around, not quite to a hopeful sense, but for it to have a satisfactory ending, is just so good. And then we have the last book, which is Bee Speaker, and this, again, is a novel that picks up hundreds of years after the events of Bearhead. We are back on Earth, actually. This is I would argue, a post-apocalyptic science fiction novel, something that I did not expect. This was another surprise for me. Reading each of these books was actually very much a surprise with my experience with them. Bee Speaker specifically, it's incredibly gothic in a sense. It just feels very atmospheric, very eerie, very unsettling. And in this world, back on Earth, we are thrown back to a more feudal society where Tchaikovsky is exploring power in the various ways in which power can be obtained and controlled and be controlling. In this novel, we're again following multiple perspectives. We are initially introduced to a character named Cricket, who is a very androgynous character. In this novel in particular, Adrian Tchaikovsky is really exploring gender and gender identity in such a wonderful, compelling, complex way. Cricket's character, who is this pretty much a monk type character, has access to, as well as his fellow monks, to the old Earth's knowledge. This group is called the Apiary, who maintain, control, and have access to knowledge of the old, which is the old world. They have access to medical knowledge, they have access to the arts, They have access to so many things, and the apiary, the monks, including Cricket, are the ones that interact with the entirety of this feudal society in this post-apocalyptic Earth. And through this access to and really control over old Earth's knowledge, it's a really great juxtaposition to another character named Serval, who is the wife of one of the feudal lords. And in this feudal society, we're thrown back where women have no say or control. However, Serval has influence within the women of her society and of her small feudal kingdom, essentially. And the exploration of what she does and what she is able to do with her influence and control is really, really interesting. And again, the way that Tchaikovsky is able to juxtapose Cricket's perspective and character with Serval's character and perspective is just a really compelling look at gender, identity, control, power, influence, and I just loved it. The way that Adrian Tchaikovsky is able to tell such compelling and distinct arcs of stories within each individual book in this series while still building a world is just something that's really well done. I know I've talked about the world in each one of these books and not really about the series as a whole, but I would just say that while Tchaikovsky doesn't tell a continuing narrative story across each one of these books, a la Final Architecture series, Tchaikovsky is able to tell and convey really compelling individual arcs within each novel. Each of these books in this series tell a distinctive story. It's a series that I want to read again and again, and I anticipate getting something so much more and different out of each time I read these books. There's just so much to dive into and explore and experience and dissect in each of these books and in this series. And I hope that in my rambling here, you will check these out. If you've already read this series, let me know your thoughts down below. If you're going to share spoilers, put like spoiler on the first line and press enter a couple times so you don't spoil anyone that hasn't read this series yet. If you haven't read this series, I hope that you will give this a chance. Let me know if I managed to convince you. I do have a coffee down below if you would like to join my monthly book club, or if you would like to just generally support my gift making if you like the gifts that I make. Otherwise, not sure when the next time I'll see you, but whenever that is, and until then, happy reading and